Hello everyone, in this video I'll be ranking the Baldur's Gate 3 Origin characters on a tier list, rank them from the best to play as to the worst to play as. So this is going to be taking into consideration all the extra stuff that you get for playing as them, as some characters do get a ton of extra content exclusive to them if you play as their Origin. So first one we have is Astarion. Now, I feel like Astarion's not really the best to play as because Neil Newbon crushed it with his voice acting. When you play as a character, you don't get to hear them talk in dialogue anymore, and missing out on hearing his voice is just unfortunate because he has an incredible voice acting role in this game. Playing as Astarion does have some interesting roleplay, though, I will admit. If you wanted to play as a vampire and see how long you can go without showing others that you're a vampire, that's a pretty interesting way to go about playing, but I do think that Astarion is just too good of a voice actor, or his voice actor is just too good, Neil Newbon, to really want to play as him. And from the dialogue options I saw, it's tough to see him just sitting there quietly while you know how good his voice is in this game, so I will say he is B tier. I love Astarion. He's an S tier character overall. I think he's one of the best in this game, but playing as him just does he's better to have around. Plus it's cool to see his story, and he bounces off other people really well. That's one thing about Astarion, is when you have him in your party, the way he talks to other people is really enjoyable. So you do miss out on that if you play as him, so that's why I'm going to put him into the B tier. Next we have Gale. Gale has a ton of exclusive content. What's nice about it is you also get your Tressum cat, Tara. You get it right at your first long rest. So you get a free camp cat. That makes him automatic S tier. But wait, there's more. You get a ton of cool content with Gale. There's a ton of buffs you can get as Gale. And also, in Act 2, there's a way where you can get an additional level 3 spell slot. No other character can get any extra spell slots, but Gale can have an interesting interaction if you play as him. So you get a nice extra spell slot, you get a cat. Terra also gives you a ring that if you fail a dexterity saving throw, you can use a reaction to succeed it instead, which is actually a very powerful ring that you can get very early on. So that makes Gale a really great class. Also, there's a lot of extra stuff added for Gale. You can ascend Gale and make him into like a god of ambition, and then you get level 9 spells. So he has some really cool spells I've done a video talking about in the past. It's like a destructive ray where you can attack 3 people for up to 150 damage. He can turn people into Tressums, the cats. So yeah, he can become a god, give you level 9 spells. I think he has the most fleshed out origin, so I would say he's probably the best. Now, I think Gale is a great voice, so similar to Astarion, Tim Downey did a great job with voicing Gale, so it's kind of sad to not have as many voice lines from him, but I still think it's worth it because he has the most content as an origin character. Next we have Karlach, and I would say that she is also really great. What's cool about Karlach is she actually has voice dialogue. No other character, like if you play as them, you don't hear your character talk, like ever. But Karlach does. She talks to herself, and she narrates a lot of moments that happen in the game, so it's not like every single situation gets monologued by her, but she has a ton of monologues and she kind of talks to herself. And Karlach also knows that she's in a video game, which is a cool interaction. She can break the fourth wall, so I think that Karlach's also in S tier. Now, she does have, I think, one of the saddest stories in the game, so if you're someone that likes to resolve that kind of stuff, you can go through her story and roleplay it that way. Also, she has a lot of unique romance dialogue options that I've seen from... I haven't played in Origin as Karlach. I've played as Gale, but not as Karlach yet. I will at some point because I want to get through it, but I've seen a lot of scenes and I watched a lot of stuff. She has a lot of unique dialogue whenever she's in romances. I recommend like a Shadowheart or Will. I think those two work well for her. And yeah, I think that out of all the Origin classes, these two have probably the most content. Obviously, Dark Urge has his own thing going on, but I'll get to that when I get to it. So yeah, I would say that they're definitely S tier. Next is Lae'zel. I feel like Lae'zel's a pretty interesting character to play as. Gith Yankee get really good bonuses in this game. Also, when you start at the Nautiloid, you get an extra helper to help you get off the ship. So his name is Losir. He ends up dying whenever the Nautiloid crashes, so you don't get to keep him long term. She has a pretty interesting story, though, and playing it through Lae'zel's eyes, I feel like she's kind of similar to Astarion, where it's better to see her bounce off of other people. Like, I find her interactions with the team really funny, but I do think that her playing as Lae'zel is a bit better than Astarion. I just prefer hearing Neil Newbon, so it's better to just have them in your party versus playing as them. But you can roleplay this interesting because she's kind of like an alien to this world. She's the youngest of the Origin. She's only, I think, like 8 or 20 years old. Will is like 24, so he's just a little bit older. But Lae'zel has lots of cool interactions. Whenever you go to get the Yankee Crush, you can talk as her, and you get a lot of stuff there. All the way through the game, the Gith are really involved in the plot of Baldur's Gate 3, so there's a lot of different ways you can go about doing her playthrough, and I think that she just adds a whole lot to it if you play as her. Not to the extent of Gale and Karlach, but she does have some cool interactions in the game, so... And plus, you talk to a lot of Gith. There's a lot of Gith interactions. There's also a lot of Drow interactions. If you play as a Lothsworn Drow, you get so many options in dialogue. I'm playing as one now as a Dark Urge, and yeah, Gith Yankee get the same. They get a lot of cool dialogue because there's a lot of Gith Yankee to Gith Yankee stuff that goes on in the game. So I would say she's A tier just for that. In the same vein, Shadowheart actually feels really close to the main story of Baldur's Gate 3. She has, as you see there, the Prism, which is the only reason that any of these people can survive, so she's obviously integral to the party. Now, if you're playing 4-player Baldur's Gate 3 run, and you need one person to always... If you play with just 4 Origin characters, one of them pretty much has to be Shadowheart, or it feels weird. Because if you're playing all 4 characters, she has the Prism, she's integral to the plot, so... I feel like she could be an S tier, but I might just put her in the A tier because, again, similar to Astarion, she's just good to have in the party. But again, if you're going with if you're playing with 3 other friends and you want someone to be in Origin, someone has to be Shadowheart. It just feels weird without her because of the Prism. So, yeah, I will put her in the A tier as well alongside Lae'zel. Just because her involvement in the plot's huge. She has a lot of moments that she overcomes all through Act 2 and Act 3, so she has a lot of plot-heavy stuff. But I feel like it's best just to have her in the party, similar to Astarion. Having them in the party just makes it... I feel like you get to see the actual story a little bit better, so she's going in the A tier. Next, we got the Dark Urge. I would say easy S tier. What can I say? They probably are the best, I would say. I'll put them above Gale. The Dark Urge, when you play through for the first time, if you haven't done a Dark Urge playthrough, I highly recommend it. It just changes. It basically takes everything you know Baldur's Gate 3 and it flips it upside down and shakes it around and just throws it away. It's incredible the amount of differences that I've encountered playing. I played through 2 Dark Urges. You can also take the Dark Urge in a multitude of ways. So you can make a Dark Urge and make them go full evil, or you can resist the Dark Urge, which I think is I would say that's probably the best story in Baldur's Gate 3, is resisting the Dark Urge. Because I won't get into the spoilers of it, but yeah, the Resist Dark Urge is extremely redeeming. You don't have to play as the Dragonborn. The Dragonborn is actually like the race in Baldur's Gate 3 with the least buffs to it. Like, it just gets acid breath or whatever type of dragon you choose. So they do kind of suck in terms of like the what they bring as racial traits. But overall, you can choose whatever you want as Dark Urge. So yeah, I would recommend going with a Drow makes it interesting because all the extra Drow dialogue is so good in Baldur's Gate 3. I'm also a big fan of Wood Elves too, but again, it's your choice. But the Dark Urge, they have the most exclusive content, so they're S tier. And finally, we got Will. Now, what's cool about Will is he also gets a lot of extra unique dialogue because of Mizora. So Will is also a charisma class, makes a great face of the party, so I would say he is good. He's probably the most suitable face of the party. The other thing is, you also get to play, if you're going for like a good run, you can play as a good Will. And if you go for a bad Will, you get to kill Karlach and then you get to be evil. So he has 2 really cool split paths. Usually if you're evil and you attack the Grove, you lose Will and Karlach. But you can play as Will and just play completely evil and kind of go on Mizora's side, because she's the only one that was really there for him in totality. Mizora is obviously evil, but if you're going the evil route, it makes sense. But he is kind of a good character. So I'm going to say Will is also S tier because of all the extra exclusive dialogue options you get. I like Will's character, but I feel like the voice acting is kind of funny at times and kind of comes across cheesy. So if you play as him, you don't get to hear. Not saying the voice actor did a bad job or anything, but I like the idea of playing as Will and seeing him as seeing yourself as that hero, the Blade of Frontiers, is really cool. So there it is. That's the tier list of the best Origin classes to play as in Baldur's Gate 3. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Dark Urge and Gale are my 2 high recommendations. I would say that they're the most fun and interesting to play as. Karlach and Will are also really great too, but honestly, you can have fun with everyone. I put Astarion in the B tier just because Neil Newbon does a great job with the voice acting, and not being able to hear his voice is just upsetting. So there it is. That's my thoughts on the origin classes in Baldur's Gate 3. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video fun or useful, please hit that subscribe button below. Let me know what kind of content you would like to see next for Baldur's Gate 3. I'm also playing the Elden Ring DLC, so if you want to see anything like that, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.